Okay.
So I think Lonely Rocks is a very good experimental for NFT ecosystem,
Yeah.
and that's really a very good connection to the traditional art show.
Yeah.
So we want to know, why Chia support that, and what we can learn from that. Maybe we can do it in China also.
Mm-hmm.
So that's totally our concept for that.
Okay, great. So I'll start with explaining a little bit the high level things, and we'll go down to details about Lonely Rocks. And feel free to ask me questions along the way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So as I originally talked about NFTs with this community a while back, one of the main focuses of Chia's push into the NFT space was to help address the traditional fine art world. Okay, and some people want to know what that was. Well, our Miami Art Week and Art Basel Miami is a good symbol of what traditional art world is. Okay, so I'll give you my few sentences what traditional art world is, and I'll explain why I think NFTs can disrupt that. Okay, so in the traditional art world, right, when you want to buy art, invest in art, or find out about new artists, fairly rich people, I'll just say that, those who have a lot of disposable income will go to these art fairs or go to galleries and look at different art pieces, learn about the story of the art or the artists themselves, okay? And then when something interests them, they, set up a connection with the artist or the gallerist or the representative, and they may either purchase work directly at the art fair or at least keep in touch with the artist or artist representative or gallerist to buy the work afterwards from the art fair. Okay, so that's kind of that traditional art world, right? Now, keep in mind, in the traditional art world, it is specifically for physical pieces of artwork, right? So it wasn't traditionally have digital mediums, as the way that they were in art fairs. Okay, now in that traditional art world, a lot of artists just wanted to focus doing their artwork, and they didn't want to do the business side of things. And that's why there were business representatives and gallerists who did that aspect of it. And most of the time, they would help organize and store the artwork and then bring them to the art fairs and, do all the coordination and that stuff. And then the artists just showed up to talk about that work at major art fairs, okay, or major gallery showings and stuff like that, okay? And just to be very clear, I'm not the expert in the art world, but I learned enough to understand it, okay? Yeah. The reason why I give this background is in the new generation of art, which we all agree a lot of art will be digital now, there's a couple things missing that the traditional art world had, but the digital art didn't have, which is why we got into this space, which is why a lot of people talk about the promise of NFT solving some of these problems, but didn't really do, okay? So I'll talk about each one of them. One, physical artwork has scarcity, right? There's one piece.
Right.
They're selling. Right? Digital, we all know, right? Click save, right? There is no scarcity per se, right? Until the invention of NFTs. NFTs created a way to create what I call artificial digital scarcity, which was great. That was one aspect of the art world that now can be mimicked in the digital art space. Okay, but there were other aspects of it that NFTs of the past, like ER721, did not solve. Okay, and these are things we try to solve and replicate from the real art world. One of the other aspects of in the physical art world is something called provenance. Provenance is the idea that that the artwork is legitimately real, made by that particular artist, and the history of who owned it is part of the story of the artwork, which makes the value of the artwork long term become valuable. Okay, and this is something that NFTs don't do well today. Of course, Chia NFTs do it well, but we'll talk about that's why we did that, right? We know through DIDs who the original creator is, and we know every subsequent person who owned it if that person decides to reveal their DID. Okay, why is this important in the old art world? Well, in the world of rich people, the rich people knowing other rich people who own something brings the value of that artwork up. Okay.
I agree.
That is why, like, if Bill Gates owned a particular art piece, it doesn't matter if it's like the worst art piece in the world. Somebody will value buying that piece from Bill Gates to claim they own an art piece that Bill Gates used to own, right? That's part of the story, right?
Mhm.
This is why when I was studying the real traditional art world, I made sure we really made sure provenance was an important part of it, because that's super important in the traditional art world. Values of art, and I hope to translate a value of NFT, over the long term increases in value when you know the legitimacy of the artwork and who previously owned it. So important people are important, galleries are important, curators who own previous artwork helps increase the value of not only that art piece, but that collection of art piece generally, right? Okay, so that's another thing.
Go ahead, Richard. And sorry, we didn't explain it clearly in the beginning. And today we have our own, our new partner, Jessica. She also understands English, and then we can talk each other.
He can't unmute.
So we talked about provenance, right?
Yep.
So the next thing I want to talk about is in the traditional art world, one of the challenges that a lot of artists talk about that they don't like, that we didn't want to replicate in a Web3 world, is once they were involved with, let's say, a gallery, they were stuck with the gallerist. They were stuck with that, that curator or whoever it is, the business partner. They couldn't choose to move off easily, going from one place to another, right? So if you think about similar to marketplaces in traditional or in our NFT space, once you're on a particular marketplace, it's sometimes very hard to move off the marketplace. At least Ethereum NFT marketplaces, because again, they try to lock you in. Well, galleries kind of do the same thing, right? As we all know that we're involved with blockchain, Web3, we all want that freedom to control our own digital assets, our freedom to be able to move from place to place without being forced to be in a particular ecosystem, right? Or I would say in a particular marketplace. So marketplace independence is another thing that I want to really help make better than what has been done in NFTs, because that was an important pain point that traditional artists also voiced that they didn't like. Okay, they wanted to be, for those artists that were capable, they wanted to be their own CEO, controlling their entire artwork and who worked with them, and if that person or a group of people weren't doing well, that they can move to another group. So as you know, in Chia's NFTs, we make that very easy because of the fact that we're a fully decentralized blockchain. NFTs are actually physically owned by the person themselves because it's a coin, not a list on a contract like in Ethereum, right? And because of our offer files, you don't need an actual marketplace to sell your work. So if a artist is capable of creating their own website and hosts some offer files, they literally can sell their NFTs directly to their patrons and supporters without any gallerist involved whatsoever, right? Any gallerist or any marketplace or what have you, right? That is one of the key things that artists really love about Chia's version of NFTs, which is, again, something that's fairly unique and helps make the art world better. Okay, right, Bernard. Okay, and then the last thing, okay, to explain in the art world that's very important, which isn't done very well in the NFT world yet today, is in the art world. One of the reasons why there's this whole art industrial complex is some of the more famous artists ultimately have their work displayed in museums or in private galleries or showings, right? And those things add the prestige, right? These art pieces are well taken care of. Ensure that they will last for a long time, for generations. That's just part of the whole art world process, right? As you know, the ERC 721 NFTs and these don't have any long-term way of maintaining these digital files that it can last from generation to generation. So ultimately, these are right now, current NFTs are very short-term value, because if those digital files ever get lost somehow, that's it. The art piece is gone. Your value of your NFT goes to zero instantaneously, right? So again, try to replicate how the real artwork works. We looked into making sure there was much better digital permanence, which is why we have multiple URLs. And we're also working with and finding startups that actually solve this long-term, also museum archival artwork supported, okay, the Chia NFT standard, right? And we are working with these people. We're not ready to announce those type of things yet, but actually looking at that. And these are like, this is the last piece of it's really important to replicate in the traditional fine art world. Change it for the better in the digital art world, and drove Chia's NFT standard. Okay, I'll let Bernard in that, and then I'll explain why we partner with Lonely Rocks as a consequence of this. Obviously, the idea is there now. We implemented NT1 standard, but we want to prove out real artists will want to use this, right? This isn't just an idea with no use case, right? So before we even directly started implementing NFT standard, we started talking to artists, verifying our ideas are good and it's their needs, and trying to find established digital artists who have their own, I would say, renowned work to verify that not only idea is going to work, but also help us find the new generation artists interested, kind of born into their work, the Web3 world, but that still has all the value of what traditional fine art world is. Understand at the end of the day, if anybody who understands the fine art world is a means in which more wealthy people have a way to lock up some part of their, say, worth to pass along net worth future generations. Okay, this is a long-term, I'll say, value add system. Okay, sometimes they buy certain pieces, donate to museums for tax breaks, and there's all these other things I don't want to go into, but there is very well-known way which most wealthy people diversify some of their investments into art for a reason, because it has traditionally held value for a long period of time. This is what we want to replicate, ultimately the same thing, but for the digital art world. Okay? So when we started looking for digital artists, that's how, and through that network, that's how we came across the Lonely Rocks project. Okay, this was a group of people who established traditional fine artists, understand digital media artwork that would resonate with, I'll just say, wealthier people long term. And their whole goal was to create a new way, a Web3 way of finding the next generation artists, showcasing their work in art show to encourage, I would just say, some wealthy people who notice it, buy something, just like the traditional art world. Okay, so Benton and James, their hard work successfully got accepted into one of the Miami Art Week's art fairs called Untitled. Have a booth there. They're allowed to showcase a bunch of NFT projects, NFT artwork, I should say. And they, of course, coming from the traditional art world, they had to make a very specific set of rules around that. And we'll talk about those rules, okay? The theme. And they are going to be showcasing that work. The whole Lonely Rocks project now focused on the ability for finding the next generation, potential future artist, some very art piece that will resonate with rich people. We'll then be at our Basel Miami or Miami Art Week and go, wow, that's great. I love to talk to that artist. I want to buy the NFT and the really cool high res artwork. So that's the experiment. Okay? And we're hoping through that the artist sees the value what we're creating. When they're thinking about creating NFTs, real artwork NFTs, they will also pick Chia as the ecosystem for that. Make sense? If you go to the lonely.rocks website, scroll down to the curator section, see there's about a dozen curators, well-established artists, digital media artists of their own right, spanning a very long career of different kinds. The ones who's going to be selecting ultimately which art pieces will be showcased, Untitled, okay, which is Miami Art Week, Art Week, end of November. They did framework, traditional art, like a contest getting future artists nominated, voting in, just like American Idol or any other Chinese version of American Idol. I actually don't know which one you'll translate, Bernard. A very famous American Idol like contest, like singing contest, but it's for artists. Curators will analyze section of the top 12 because it's digital art. What's very unique about this, what I really love about this is any of the artist's work can be shown there because they're going to have look like iPad selection screen, and it can and pick whichever their artwork they want to showcase. And if artist submits a work and can get themselves to Art Week, they can even showcase and talk about their artwork to potential patrons directly there. It's super unique networking opportunity for up and coming artists, or to kind of build a portfolio with rich clientele, patrons. Okay, and that's in a nutshell why we wanted to work at Loading Rocks. They understood value of Web3 and what Chia offered. Running this contest, and they already got into a very prestigious art fair, okay, at Miami Art Week. They to do their first contest, Chia, okay, to showcase art, real art, I guess in quotes, art that is more acceptable in the traditional fine art world. Venue, potentially more cutting edge investors, of the ultra wealth class might be interested in buying. That's it. That's a really, really compelling story. How can the Chinese community get involved? That was one of the questions that was asked by Chia in China. And there's a few ways. One, there's some very talented digital artists in the Chinese community. They're very interested in submitting their work for potentially be nominated. I'd love to do that for them. Okay, so the current way Loading Rocks works is they don't want just anybody submitting because they'll get thousands of submissions. Okay, so they have this tiered system of like entry fees to support the the work that they're doing, right? And all of it is for the for supporting their presence at Miami Art Week. The $10 fee, which is just for you to see and weigh in what potential work is being submitted, but there's no voting and there's no nomination capability. It's just participation. Okay, you can participate in Discord and you can interact with the curators. You can ask questions with the artists and what have you. $100 fee. Fee gets you two things. Well, multiple things. One is allow you to nominate one piece of work. So that's sort of like the entry fee. Allows you also on a weekly basis to vote for a piece of work, okay, that isn't yours. Okay, for obvious reasons, right? Nominating yourself kind of defeats the purpose. So if you nominate yourself, you don't vote for yourself, but you encourage other people to vote for you, right? It also allows you, if you can pay yourself to go to my art week, go to Untitled, and you can show off friends, families, or potential patrons, your work was actually at my art week. Selecting on the iPad, hey, your artwork, display on a big screen, and you chat, you can take a picture, you can talk, so it gives you that the fame that you've been at Art Basel Miami or my art, which is important if you are traditional, if you want to make it successful in more the traditional art world, right? Does not apply directly to NFTs, right? Because I don't think most NFT traditional PFP NFT projects about Art Basel Miami or the just art world, okay? Stop there for Bart to translate, and I'll continue afterwards. And Loading Rocks has $1,000 tier, it's like the VIP tier. It allows you to have 12 nominations, votes per week. Okay, voting is on a weekly basis. Okay, so you can buy, you can vote and vote more times, right? And they will allow you to bring one additional person with you to actually participate in the actual event at Miami Art Week at Untitled. Okay, kind of like the pricing structure, and the reason why they did the pricing structure is simply for two reasons. One is to reduce spam of just entering, because that's how the art world works, right? So these are sort of like membership entry fees. But the more important thing is they need to fund all the work they have to do to actually prepare for this exhibition at the art fair itself. Like nothing is for free, as you probably know. So it costs money to do these things. So that's the membership structure, and then I'll explain to you. I'm trying to encourage just general Chia community and to participate by offering free nominations and voting, to this whole process. Okay. Also understand it's sometimes challenging for starving artists to be able to even afford $100 to nominate themselves. So what I decided to do was I personally purchased a few metallics, okay, the 12 nominations, and I offered it to the Chia community. And the Chia community is, if you in the Chia community or you have a friend who is an artist, a digital artist, okay, and I want to be very clear, artists in the fine art world is a little different from the traditional, I would say, is different from the profile picture projects that is the majority of what NFTs are today. Okay, it is different. Okay, so I will explain a little bit the difference. Okay, the profile picture projects, they're good, they're fun projects, they're memeable, they're what have you. But traditional fine art world doesn't perceive that as good long-term investment value, right? Not like traditional art, okay? Unless it's sort of like Cyberpunks or Bored Ape Yacht Club, where it's really got what I call long-term cultural significance. It's unlikely to gonna last, multiple generations. 100 years from now, most, I would say, profile picture NFT projects will not be talked about, in a cultural significance. Fine world, their whole goal is create cultural significant artwork that lasts for generations, right? That's their whole thing, and that's how they try to maintain value long term over generations, right? So because of the goals are different, ways of things working is also different. Okay, as you probably know, a lot of upcoming artists usually don't make a lot of money in their career. The money arrives later in the career. Is the trick for a lot of art investors is they try to get in being that cool, young, hip artist before they become famous. Their artwork, very low price, are being first or what have you. And as their fame becomes more popular for whatever the reasons or rationale is, it's hard to predict what cultural significance are for people. Like either can talk about it, brag about it, or sell those art pieces, right? So usually people buy, multiple that same artist collection because they want to keep a couple and then sell others. Sort of like the profile picture NFT, same idea, right? But this is over a longer period of time. We're talking about it's not months, right? So that's a big difference, right? Trying to mimic the same thing. Opportunity for young artists who can't afford the entry fee, but believe in Chia, and Chia community a chance to nominate some of these artwork. But they have to be in a specific theme. I'll talk about the Lonely Rocks theme in a minute. And some part of Chia community voting power, but obviously it's not all Chia people voting. There's lots of people in the art world who's buying membership as well, to vote. And then process. And the curators will pick the final 12 because they understand rich people look for, in cultural resonating art. Go ahead. The art fest or every art gallery or exhibition has a theme. It's not just anything, okay? For Lonely Rocks theme, season 1 is self-portraits. So they're only going to accept work, interpretation of self-portrait. It's literal, meaning it's really like, a painted version or a digital painted version of your own selfie, or be abstract. It could be, a poem that describes about yourself, right? But as long as it's in the vein and theme, portraits, they will allow it as being allowed as a nomination. Okay, so that's their theme. Okay, two-tier of deciding who the winners will be that will be showcased at Untitled. The process is this voting process by anybody who purchases $100 or more token. Okay, these membership tokens, and that just allows them to vote each week. The higher the vote, the likely the creators will judge those first. Right? The highest vote counts, the curators will judge the ones that have the highest vote count. And then once they find the first that they like, so the second part is the curator. Now, October 31st, popular voting happens. And anybody who has $100 or more membership token can on a weekly basis. After October 31st, so basically the first couple weeks of November, the case will then look at the most top voted first and select 12 that they feel really represent a good collection of portraits, showcase at Untitled, which feel have the biggest chance to resonate with all healthy people who go through Untitled and look at for future artists, to invest in, after their work. Okay, so that's kind of that process. What I'd like to do is maybe next week I will invite Lux people and can coordinate that, explain why the theme, why the curation process, because they're the experts on that. I'm the right person to go into the details of that stuff. Okay, what I'm going to do, Chinese community, because Chia in China asked this question last week. This week, is how can the Chinese community participate? Offer 12 nominations to the Chinese Chia in China community, or the just general Chinese community. Okay, let Chia in China coordinate nations, 12 weekly voting. I'd be very clear. If I directly nominate a work for the Chinese community, I can't vote for it. It's just that's the way the process works, right? So the Chinese community wants more voting power instead of the nomination power. Somebody else has to nominate their work, right? Or if they want that free nominations and then they will encourage other people to help vote for them, that's fine too, right? I'm just explaining to you, like, this is designed that way to not allow you to just buy your way into the art, right? So what I'm gonna do is after this, and I will talk to Jack directly. I hope it's Jack. Work logistics of this, but I will donate 12 nominations and 12 weekly voting just for the Chinese community. So at least one Chinese self-portrait project can be displayed at Miami Art Week, which I think would be really awesome, right? Because I want it to be a very international presence, and obviously I have a bias for showing some Chinese stuff, but that's okay, So okay, that's pretty much what the Lonely Rocks project is, and she is supporting it because we really want to prove out that use case, and we hope, and it is a long-term bet. I'm going to say we hope one of these up-and-coming artists will become famous one day, and they can say, yeah, they got their big break, their big start, Chia NFTs through the Lonely Rock project, right? Like, that's the investment that we're making on this. And then we're hoping as other artists see how cool the NFTs are to consider minting on Chia NFTs, right? So this is like the strategy right now. It's a very, very different aspect NFTs than the way it's done right now for profile picture project, which is, I know that's what you're talking about, Jack, when you're saying it's going down. Yes, it's going down because, like I mentioned, it doesn't have these long-term position to the traditional fine art world worked out a long time ago. And we're getting those things long-term strategy for Chia NFT success, right? Not the short-term value profile pictures are. And just so you know, profile picture projects is down in all blockchains. It's not just Chia.
Right.
So it's not an indication of Chia specifically, So I'm here to answer any questions now about, Chia NFTs, long-term things. Go ahead.
I want to know, do these 12 seats have to be Chinese artists, or if they are from other Asian countries or any other places, but they contribute through our platform, can they also get into the pool?
Okay. So the answer is donating a lot. I'm donating 24 nominations to just the general Chia community. I'm also donating 12 more specifically for the Chinese diaspora community. Okay, I do it through Jack in China because to me he is sort of like the the main person I see outside of the Chia, when I say outside Chia, not a Chia employee, independent Chia lover who has coordinated a majority of the Chinese community, to do that. So if they come through Chia or Jack's, network, our supporters, we'll count those 12 there. If they happen to participate in the Edward's spaces, Edward Chia music spaces, they can go through either. It's just who did they go through to get the nomination done? That's all. That's the difference. Okay. And then the voting, Edward did a really good thing, and I think I would this. I'll talk to Jack, but he can do whatever he wants. They just did a Twitter poll, but maybe they'll do it via WeChat, or they'll do it via, I don't know, some other way of a poll, on a weekly basis of these votes this week from the Chia Chinese community, the Chia in China community, where the votes to go. Okay, something like that. But again, I'll talk to Jack afterwards to kind of figure out. I'll let him define the rules. On is every Saturday or Sunday. Here's the few people we want to nominate, the first 12 nominations, whatever that is, and then here are the weekly votes. And what I do, I'm happy to do this every Sunday or every Saturday, like this time, is you can do it live if you want. We could do it, and I'll just go to the voting website, and we all whatever. I'll let Jack figure that out, and I'll help. Okay, what I want to do, ensure that the Chinese community can participate without needing to spend money, especially those who don't have money to afford to spend. Okay, but my job is to encourage lots of people to support this project, right? So those who have the means to spend money, I do encourage them, because I can vote, right? And you can nominate, right? You can participate and make this project successful. So in fine art community, meaning in the fine art world, we'll start recognizing Chia as a very viable blockchain NFTs, right? And obviously we're all trying to help make that happen, right? If you believe this is a good direction for Chia to do, I believe that, which is why I'm investing all this time and energy, But if you don't understand this space and you're ask friend in the traditional fine art world, is our strategy a good strategy? And if they say yes, then you know the answer. Okay. I don't know all the detailed Loading Rocks because it's a partnership. I'm not running Loading Rocks. So I do want to bring them on board, and you can ask all the details, why self-portraits, why Miami Art Week, why, the 12 curators, all those little detailed art stuff. I can't answer all those, so I would like them to come instead to answer that.
Yeah.
But I'll arrange that. I can help arrange them to come, but I can't answer the questions today.
What Jack is asking is there a way to upgrade your NFT? Like for example, you own an NFT and then you sell it to someone else. Before you sell it to someone else, you put your name on it, like your Richard name on it, to upload a newer version of it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So now the T1 standard as it is right now, without any data layer integration, NFTs would invalidate the hash, right? Because there's a hash tied to the NFT image, so you couldn't directly do something like that. Okay. What I'm being for immunity, our company in the future, we'll see whichever comes first. Into NFTs, do upgrades, right? Because data layer allows you to keep track of these changes, so you could technically upgrade the hash NFT image, and then you can, be done. I do have ideas what I want to do, though we haven't done it. Is, as you all know, we just released data layer. A, B, we're busy. We as Chia is busy for the end with all the other things we promised on the roadmap. So the earliest the Chia, the company, has time to work on a, addition of data layer integration with NFT would be earliest is sometime in 2023, and I don't even know exactly when. Okay, so what I've been trying to do is this with some of the stronger community developers, and to create chips, right? That improvement proposals. How they would like to integrate NFTs, and I would be happy to give my ideas to them. But as you all know, ideas are easy, making it is hard, right? And see if somebody in the Chia community can actually develop that. I think it's possible, but it has to be done. It's additional work that has to be done that hasn't been done yet. That's it.
From a traditional artist, they are also a very popular question because have physical art and how to make it. That is kind of a headache for them. I suggest them scan it or take a picture and then burn it out. So make it the only one, okay?
So there are a lot of ideas in the traditional art world on how to move into art world. That's to each artist how they want to do things. Some artists have done exactly what you said, Jack. But what I'll say is this: the view for is ability to create scarcity for digital artwork. Already very traditional ways of doing physical artwork and how to sell them and what have you. The whole point of why NFT is revolutionizing things is there was no easy way to make good money like in the traditional art world for digital art, right? Media art is what they call it. This is why NFT is such a breakthrough for the art world. Main problem why most serious artists haven't used NFTs yet is because of the other problems that I mentioned that Chia is solving. No clear provenance, no good permanence, no good marketplace independence, right? And when I say marketplace independence, I also forgot to mention the consistent royalties the artist will receive on a per trade basis, regardless of which marketplace is being used, right? Which is, again, fairly unique to Chia. So.
Do you have any documentation, like images or videos or website that we can check for the past years for the Untitled Art?
Yeah, sure. That I can give you the link to Untitled. Sure. Okay. Yeah. And let me find a tweet from Learning Rocks with their show their particular. I think I put a couple tweets on where their actual location is, and actually they probably are listed on the exhibition list on the website. Let's see. Do they have the exhibition list yet? No, I don't think they have an exhibition list. But anyway, yeah. So it's a fairly. Oh yeah, they have a press release for the exhibition list, and you will see Learning Rocks listed there. So they're call this they don't list a city, they say the interverse, and you'll notice everybody else like list where they're from and what city, and then they're the only ones that they're like from the internet. So yeah, so this link here, which is off their website, is the news announcement of their participation in the art Untitled. And I want to give some context. Just gets into these art fairs. They themselves have to pass a rigorous process, and only around established artists we actually even get a booth at any of these venues. That they were successful to get into Untitled in itself shows that they have a lot of legitimacy in the traditional fine art world.
Yes. So we make it clear. We have you could provide the digital picture and also picture by camera or
any of those possible
or a small video. That's okay.
Yes,
but game cannot game.
Well, I mean, if I don't want to be the one explaining this in detail because I'm not qualified, but I will say in broad strokes what I understand. If the person who submitted have fine art background, meaning they got at least a BFA, small gallery work, they will know what generally an acceptable thing at these art fairs. Okay, but if you don't have such background and you just want to submit something, sure, I'll happy to submit it, but your chance that the curator will pick it will be very low, because again, it has to be art resonates with the type of people who come to buy artwork, right? People who come to buy artwork aren't buying a video character, video game character, aren't buying a profile picture character, right? They're there because they looking for certain art tastes, and that's why the curators are there. The curators for Learning Rocks know what art buyers, the rich art buyers, are looking for, right? So that's why I do recommend, if you're nominating something, you should nominate with person comes from that world a bit. They're just the key difference is they're starting out. They're not famous now. They're not the people of the world now. Okay, they might one day, and they want that first of putting on CV that they had their work showcase at Untitled, and then as their in the art world grows, they because all their earlier artwork will also become more valuable, right? Like that's how it works. Right. I just want to be very clear. This is very, very different than profile picture NFT investments methodology. Okay. If you want profile pictures for fun or as a term flip, metaverse gaming, which again, I'm a believer of, but this is different. This is fine art, traditional art world where investments for 10, 20, 30 years, it's fine what I call artists type situation. We're just making that available through the T world now for digital art, okay, for meme art, okay. So I know this is very, but that's why I highly recommend as a friend who is an art. Everybody, I know that for a fact. Just ask a friend of yours who really knows, like I said, art world and art stuff, and explain to them. Hey, ask them if you used to be at Art Basel Miami Art Week, is that a big deal or not, right? And and get the sense of why it's important in that world. Remember, this tends to be for the wealthy, give access those who want to have that network one day, future artists, the first step into that world. So
on to the Untitled Art, it's coincides with Art Basel.
Yes, it coincides with Art Basel. Yes.
Art Basel also very famous. I saw some news.
Yes. So the Art Basel and the greater what I'll say art fairs, they call it Miami Art Week because they're doing the best and brightest art. Basel is the top. Okay, it's also very, very expensive. To get a booth in Art Basel Miami is hundreds of thousands of dollars US. Okay, so not cheap, right? So all these they call satellite art fairs are also very prestigious. They're just not art bag. Right? So what I decided to do was first partner with somebody, not the super low tier, medium tier, to just learn. Yep. Before we go to the top tier, because that requires a lot more plan, and all this other stuff, so.
也是一个名字，就是这次的展会正好有一个叫做 Untitled Art，这个是他们的这个要参加的这个展会，这个展会是每年一次，从2019年就开始有了。这个 Art Bar 呢是另外一个展会的这个名字，它的规格更高，它的规格应该说是。就是说更名气更大一些，但这两个展会呢，正好在同时，都在海滩，也就是说，一个参者或者是买家，就跟这儿搞很多展会一样嘛，从这个展场就会跑到那个展场，就是他们会肯定到处去找产品嘛，找作品不是产品，那这样有机会，就搭上顺风车嘛。
Other questions?
Actually, we would like to talk with you, Richard, more, not today, but maybe another day about the game. Okay, so very interesting about how the GameFi in Chia. So,
I'm looking forward to some GameFi in Chia for sure. Yes. I'm watching a few projects. I'm hoping one of them will be very successful, at least one of them to be very successful. So yes, if you guys all have any suggestion what I should watch, I would love to hear about it too sometime. So
I think that's all we have today. And thank you very much, Richard, for your time.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you for translating. As always. Thank you, Jessica.
we definitely hope to have Learning Rock online next week. So
okay.
help us.
Okay. Great. Okay, great. Okay,
Yeah,
I look forward to it.
thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jack, do you want to stick around or to talk about the process today, or do you want to do another day?